Welcome back to another episode of QTV. I'm Michael James.
I'm Kate Mackey.
And I'm Matthew Bow.
Now, we're joined tonight by two very special guests. We have Steve Minon. Now, Steve was previously the co-owner of Junior, the advertising agency in the Valley, which was behind all three of the Rip and Roll campaigns.
That's right,
Steve.
yes.
And Steve is currently one of the creatives behind the Congratulations, You're Having a Lesbian billboard that has been circulating around the country. So Steve's going to have a chat with us about that tonight. We're also going to be chatting to Chris Tyquin, is joining us on the couch with Matt and Kate. Now, Chris is the CEO, or one of the CEOs of Goa Billboards. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Now, Goa Billboards were also involved with the Rip and Roll campaign in 2011, donating advertising space to the campaign, and in the follow-on campaign, which was Embrace Acceptance, and have jumped on the bandwagon again in helping us celebrate our community with the Congratulations, You're Having a Lesbian billboard again. So thank you very much for joining us, Chris.
Pleasure.
Great to have you on the couch.
Yeah, it's going to be a very jam-packed episode. Now, we're going to go straight into some news for this evening, and we're all going to join in on that. Now, one of the biggest things that's been happening lately is Russia. Every single week we seem to have something new to report on Russia. Now, a few weeks ago, the IOC was saying that it's going to be safe for athletes to go and travel to Russia, and that they would be exempt from the anti-gay propaganda laws that have been set up there to allegedly protect the children from being exposed to gays and knowing that they exist. Now, the person who was key in putting that through, his name was Vitaly Milanov, one of the politicians in Russia. He has said that that's not the case. He thinks that the Russian government doesn't actually have the power to be able to lift the laws as it sees fit, and that our athletes could actually be persecuted while they're over there. So it's seems a bit up and down there. And a few people have been getting a little bit upset about what's going on in Russia, and you might have seen that people have been boycotting a few different products, spirits, a couple of the vodkas have been aimed at. So there's a Facebook group that have decided to go with a little bit of a different tactic, and I think this speaks for itself. Their Facebook group is called Send a Dildo to Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
They've said, help impale the Vlad. Send your toys, new or used, to where they're needed the most, because nothing says fuck you like a used sex toy in your mailbox. Isn't that right?
We have to make sure they're not made in Russia, because that'd be they are double standard.
Yeah, so it's been one of a few different things that have been going on in that regards. There's been another group, it's been draw dicks on Vladimir Putin. People are just generally angry and trying to really channel that anger in a creative direction across the internet, as they like to do.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with getting creative with your anger.
Yes, exactly. You should go and help them, Steve. Come up with a new billboard that they could put up there to go and combat the masses. Lady Gaga's even been on board, and Tilda Swinton as well.
We reported her Tilda with the flag a couple of weeks ago, and I think Lady Gaga's been making some tweets this week regarding that as well, actually. So.
She's been very, very angry.
Yeah, not to mention some of our Aussie athletes as well. Our Olympic diver
Matthew
Mitchell has come out as well, and definitely discussed the topic leading up to the Olympics, because it could mean some high-profile athletes could potentially be at risk of arrest and whatever else goes with that.
Chris, you're in the advertising industry, obviously, so this kind of ties in for you a little bit here in terms of products being boycotted and people being represented. How do you feel about all of that?
Oh, Russians. Yeah. What do you expect?
That's a billboard on its own almost.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It pretty much speaks for itself.
The other thing we were going to talk about was that there's some speculation about there's a digital edition of a controversial book that is coming out. It was originally claimed, it was originally published in 1994. It's called Same-Sex Unions in Pre-Modern Europe. It's now getting a digital release at the end of the month, which will give it a whole new audience, as obviously the world has changed a bit from then. A theologian is saying that he's been sourcing texts from as far back as the 8th century, claiming that the ancient church performed rituals between two men that were basically a civil union. Unsurprisingly, the book has had lots of controversy surrounding it from both conservative Christians and mainstream academics, and they've attacked both the author's analysis and conclusions. But it's just one of those things that you have to wonder if it's... Are we just looking for things, when the Bible isn't necessarily relevant to what everyone's living these days? Are we, just looking for things to support our conclusion or not? What do you think?
I mean, it's been around for years that the Greeks back in the ancient Greek days. I can't remember the correct term, but there was they would always have their young boys that they would do things like that's always been depicted through the ages, that there was men with men or men with boys back in all of those times. So I suppose it's not a huge revelation that it's now coming back that they had some sort of religious union to tie that in with. So I'm not really entirely surprised. So.
It's interesting, I guess, that with that sort of thing is that the Bible's been translated and retranslated and untranslated, and it's all been about the politics of the day. So it's very likely that there were rites that were endorsed by the church. It's just that, are they relevant now? Is it relevant that ever happened? So,
what do you think, Steve? You a religious man?
I'm not a religious man, but I do appreciate how sometimes religion can guide people. And they look for answers, and the answers usually come in a written form. So, if they find something, I can see why they cling to it.
Well, speaking of written form, there has been some celebrations around the world this week with the announcement that the Oxford Dictionary in the UK may be soon set to change their definition of marriage. So after Queen Elizabeth legalised some new marriage legislation in the UK on the 17th of July, they have come out making some statements to say that they are definitely looking into changing their wording. They haven't revealed exactly the new wording as yet, but they have said, they are always focusing on words in our language that are changing, that their definition is changing, and they do say that they definitely believe they will be changing that in upcoming editions. So I think that's fantastic.
They have to stay relevant. I mean,
Exactly.
language has to stay relevant.
Of course, I think I'm sure they put doll in there from Homer Simpson. So they're up with their current social wording. They did reference the Canadian Space Dictionary that has actually taken gender out of their definition of marriage. Yeah. So they actually, and I will quote, state that it is a state of being a married couple voluntarily joined for life or until divorce. So, we'll wait to see what happens with the Oxford Dictionary. But
that's the relevant part, isn't it? Is it a couple who are joined until divorce? So
exactly.
You can't argue with the dictionary.
Yes. Gay, straight, however, you can be there for life or until divorce.
Fantastic. Now, we're going to head off to a break very shortly and come back to have our interview one-on-one with Steve and Chris. But in the meantime, we would love to know your thoughts on anything that's happening on the show. If you've got any articles that you'd like to send our way, make sure you jump on Facebook and on Twitter. QTV Brisbane is where you will find us. Send us everything you have. You can also send us an email to qtv@31.com.au, and we'll always be live tweeting right now during every episode, so feel free to shoot us any questions right now. We'll be back after this very short break with our interview with our fantastic guests. Welcome back to QTV. Now, it's time to get to know our two interview guests for this evening. As I mentioned earlier, Steve was one of the owners of Junior, the advertising agency, which was in charge of Rip and Rolls 1, 2 and 3. Most people know Rip and Roll 2, obviously, which was 2011, and was the most complained about advertisement of the year. And Chris Tyquin is the CEO, one of the CEOs of Goa Billboards, who were donating some of the space. Now, they've got people's tongues wagging again with a great campaign we've covered twice on the show already, which was Congratulations, You're Having a Lesbian, which, Steve, you were the creative force behind that. And Chris, you again have been a driving force in supporting our community by donating advertising space for that. So I suppose kick us off a little bit with Steve. What made you come up with this? How did you come up with it, and why?
Well, originally it was in response to a question that Shelley Argent asked me. she wanted to know what we could do to help her keep marriage equality on the agenda. This was just after the vote in federal parliament, and I was thinking that maybe the idea here would be to not go down traditional routes with the idea, and try to find a way to connect with Middle Australia rather than talk directly to the politicians or try to put pressure on somehow. So I was trying to think of a way to come up with something that average everyday people could relate to. And then I was watching a story on The Project one night, and Joe Hockey was there. And Charlie Pickering asked Joe Hockey what he thought about marriage equality. And Joe Hockey gave the party line, which is to say that he felt it was an institution that was between a man and a woman. But he said, in an almost throwaway comment, but if one of my children told me they were gay and they wanted to get married, he said, I don't know how I would feel about that. So that gave me the idea that maybe people don't relate to the cause because they don't personalise it. So that's where I came up with the idea of having a baby that you could say, what if this baby was gay or lesbian?
Because I think, like, I don't have children myself, but my friends and family that do, like, that's such a moment for couples, like when they're going in, is it going to be a girl, is it going to be a boy? And that's that one moment that's so, exciting, and that moment you get that one opportunity to find out. So I think to put that spin on it, like, I've seen the billboard and also the video version of the ad, and yeah, definitely, I think it definitely would make the average viewer or person seeing the billboard really think about that in a different way if they hadn't considered that topic before. So,
so Chris, you are a straight man and married. You have children as well. Three children as well. So, what puts you in line with Steve in driving this campaign?
Oh, I think as you get older, and particularly when you've got teenage kids, when Steve, we first started talking about this several months ago now, and I think as a parent, you, as a married couple with children, at some point you've got to have the conversation about what if. And I always remember my eldest son, who's now 20, this would be going back to when he was in year 12, and two of his friends came out in grade 12. And one of them was to the, which was wonderful, to the absolute acceptance and love of his parents. But the other one's father said, if you don't get over this in 12 months' time, you won't have a roof over your head. Now, what followed from that was a horrified mother who couldn't believe that her husband was actually even thinking this, let alone saying it to his own flesh and blood. But it made me think that these are conversations, be they uncomfortable for people or not. But and I think back to my own circumstance. Here I was having this conversation with my wife about what about one of our children came out gay at a time when our eldest was 13 or 14. And I'm thinking, well, that's 13 or 14 years way too late. I mean, these are conversations that, to be frank, couples that are looking to get engaged need to have to establish exactly where each partner stands on it. Because in the context of this one where this child was basically going to be shown the door in 12 months' time, unless they got over it, they'd obviously never had the conversation. And I'm sure that the mother, you'd have to question whether they actually might have got married in the first place, because they were at opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's two very diametrically opposed views for two people to have who've been together that long and not know.
As a heterosexual parent, I wanted to ask, what do you think would make someone, what is the justification, do you think, for the father feeling that way?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, I'm just amazed. I relate to being Catholic. My children go to Catholic schools. There's a remarkable level of both tolerance and acceptance for the gay community within those Catholic schools, despite what the gay community may think. If you said to me, where do I identify myself as, I'd have to say probably, a conservative Christian. But I fully accept gay people for who they are. I sometimes wonder, I don't have what you call a gaydar. When someone comes into me to apply for a job, the last thing I'm worried about is their sexual preference. It's can they do the job, and more importantly, how can they do the job?
You've both had a really, I suppose, fantastic journey over the last couple of years, and you're both in an interesting position where you've both been behind these campaigns that are very high profile for GLBTIQ rights and issues. How has that come about for both of you? For Steve, for you, as I suppose a prominent gay man, a lot of people know you in our community, and it's the creative force behind that. And Chris, as you said, a conservative Christian man, have you copped a lot of flack from people or had any negative feedback?
I haven't copped a lot of personal feedback because I don't front the campaign. You've been in that position before. You can be identified. I don't do that, but I have been surprised when I read some of the feedback how it makes me feel. And I think that's one thing that that you can't be prepared for. I tend to live my life in a pretty happy, cloistered environment. I live in inner city Brisbane. I don't encounter too much prejudice or vilification. But when I read what is written about campaigns, it does make me feel a little set back.
Yeah, I could jump in there and say, you know, I've often shared the emails and letter correspondence we get into our place complaining, and I often share it with experienced practitioners in our industry, you know, people that have been in the advertising game for over 30 years. These are people in their 40s and 50s and sometimes 60s. And they are all just cannot believe the extreme levels of homophobia that exist in the community. And I don't mean that in the context of extreme as in a lot of people. I think it's a small number of people with extreme views. And it took all of us, if I go back to the Rip and Roll campaign, we were just gobsmacked. We were just totally gobsmacked by it and horrified. I mean, I was embarrassed that here we were as Christians, and these were people's views within that church, or within that broader church.
One of the things we know is don't read the comments. It's how you stay sane on the internet.
Absolutely, particularly on Courier Mail, that can be very interesting. But it's been fantastic to hear about your experiences and how you guys have been through that and what you stand for. And I suppose we couldn't thank you enough for speaking up for our community. So make sure you do jump online and you can check out Steve's website, and you can also check out the Facebook page for Goa, and make sure you support them in any ventures that they do, because they've been very integral in supporting our community. Now we'll be right back after this very short break for segment 3, QTV. Welcome back to QTV. It's time for our final segment of the night where we catch up with several different goings-ons. A few different announcements for Brisbane Pride Festival, which is coming up very, very soon. It's Pride Month in September. Did you guys know that?
Right.
You didn't know that, Matt. You're shaking your head.
Oh no, that was excitement face.
Oh, yeah. All right, excellent. Well, so Pride Month is September from 1st to the end. We kick off the month with a gala launch night at Cloudland on the 30th of August, so just before the month kicks off. The guide is out with all of the event listing, came out today. So you can jump onto pridefestival.com.au to pick up the guide digitally, or you can go into all the usual places and pick up a physical copy. There's lots of things that you can go to in there.
That gala night's going to be fantastic. Nibblies.
You just say that because you're
fabulous
performing
entertainment included in your ticket price. But no, it's going to be a great way to kick off the month. It's going to be a beautiful venue, and it's a rainbow theme. That night, if you fancy for your dressing up, I think, from memory. We've got to work on an outfit. So that's going to be a great night. So everyone should jump on the site there and get some tickets.
The theme for the whole month is True Colours.
Yes.
And our pinnacle event on September 21st, which I hope you're both coming to, Chris and Steve, is Brisbane Pride Fair Day, which comes back to New Farm, or not back to, but goes to New Farm Park for the first time ever. Are you coming?
Well, it's just down the road, so of course.
Yeah, in a city, gay, of course you have to come.
And it's an awesome location there, you know, like it's just beautiful park.
It'd be stunning.
Be lovely.
Hey, Chris, are you going to come along?
21st September.
Yes.
Let me check.
I'll
get back.
It's a really great community day. Like everybody
There's
comes along with
stalls
kids and heterosexual families, and you know, my mum comes along every year now. She's great. She's coming to work on a stall this year. She's going to be really cute, sitting there selling windmills.
And that's the thing, like you can bring, like because it is in the day, you can bring all your other friends, and we've got friends that come along with us with their kids, you know, of the heterosexual friends, and it is a great opportunity for everyone in our local Brisbane community to be involved in such a fantastic day. And,
It's a nice family atmosphere.
definitely,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
And there will be jumping castles.
Yes, and
Oh.
entertainment there again. So I know you're working on some great,
Yeah.
great.
Whole heap of entertainment. We're going to announce the lineup very, very soon. But you certainly do not want to miss the lineup this year.
Absolutely
Kate,
not.
you went to the movies
I
recently.
did. I went to the movies. So I decided that I would love to go and see Behind the Candelabra, which starred
Michael
Matt
Douglas.
Damon and Michael Douglas as
Interesting
Liberace.
pairing.
Yeah. It was really interesting. Like, I personally didn't know a lot of the story of Liberace. Obviously, I knew the name, but yeah,
I just knew that he was really ridiculously gay. I didn't.
He wasn't gay.
But it was a really well done movie. I mean, I haven't read any of the reviews yet myself, but I loved it. The sets, costumes, everything was fantastic. Very interesting storyline of Liberace as who he was and how he approached his relationships and things like that. But yeah, I thought it was quite nice. It was a late screening, so it wasn't a terribly full cinema, but everyone
Good.
that was
Your
leaving.
feet up. And you
I
don't-
definitely
You had a bit of a
did.
snooze, didn't you?
Oh
Bit
no,
of a
I didn't.
snooze?
I didn't. It wasn't because of the movie. It was the time. But it was beautiful, and there were some really nice tender moments between the main two characters. I know that you boys were saying there had been a bit of criticism that there weren't really any like sex scenes or anything like that. But there were some really, there were some really
There kind of were. I've seen it.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
there,
Okay.
there were, and I
Yeah.
found there's a lot of touching moments in there. And then also, they didn't gloss over the fact at the end of, they touched
Don't
on
give away
his-
Yeah.
Well, I can't. Yeah, well, it's a true story. But the health-related issues then mentioned, you would have picked up on those at the end as well. So I
Yeah.
think it brought it to the forefront. But yeah,
It was
definitely something
disappointing that it was too gay to be in the mainstream cinemas in the US. And
Well, I think I read an interview with Michael Douglas who said the reason he did it was because it was just about a marriage.
different. Well, that's it. Yeah, they
Love
didn't
that.
really. There was no big yay. Like it was
No,
just
it
there.
was just
People
like every
are-
other marriage that goes bad.
Exactly.
People are often saying that in most portrayals, like with Modern Family and things, people were complaining there wasn't enough affection shown and they were the only couple that hadn't kissed or whatever. So it sounds good that if that's wrong, that people are actually allowing that to happen in
Yeah.
movies now. The horror,
And
two
I
men
thought there were
kissing.
some beautiful moments, them just like lounging on the couch and watching the awards shows and all those different things that were just like a regular marriage. So I thought that part was really nice.
Chris, have you seen it, or do you
No.
follow much of the movies? Because I know you used to work in the film and television industry for quite a while.
No, I haven't seen it, but I intend seeing it. Yeah, my brother says some of it's a bit confronting. I bet the sex scenes. I think. I think I gather they were there. So I think
They
you
are.
might have been asleep during that. I'm not paying attention.
I may have had a tiny nana nap, but it was a very late
Just a tiny one.
Maybe I missed that.
And Rob Lowe's face was a
Oh,
sight to
that was
apparently-
it. Oh, Rob
So I
Lowe's
heard
face
that's
was
the big
hole.
outstanding.
Love
That
Rob Lowe.
was-
He is the sight to behold lately. Funny man.
There's even the cameo from Paul Reiser from Mad About You as
Oh,
his
really?
lawyer, I
Yes.
think, as well.
And Debbie Reynolds is in
yes.
it as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
Still
we
alive.
We forgot to do something very important with you. You guys almost got off the hook earlier in segment 2.
Not so lucky.
We like to end all of our interviews with a QTV Quick Six, and you're not going to be any exception to the rule tonight, gentlemen. So
Right.
we have 6 questions for you, and you have to answer the first thing that comes to your mind straight away. You ready? Yes? Okay. These are very simple, nothing too life-threatening for you. First one for you, Big Brother or Survivor?
Survivor.
So
Ah, yes. South Park or Family Guy?
Family Guy.
Oh, no.
Family Guy.
Oh, shenanigans.
I've got one up your alley. Dumplings or dim sims?
Dumplings.
Oh, dim sim.
Steamed
Oh,
or
you're in
fried, I
bad
should have
books
said.
now.
Steak.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
steamed
fried.
Oh, no, steamed or fried. And boardroom or ballroom?
Ballroom.
Boardroom.
Ooh.
Ah,
All right. Favourite meal in Brisbane, which restaurant?
Oh.
Harajuku gyoza.
It used to be the Kim Tharn up at Hargrave when Lee and La, up in Hargrave
Yeah.
Street in West End when Lee and La had it. Yeah, it's good. They did great Vietnamese food.
I love Quantans on
Ah, I need to get there.
It's a lucrative industry.
QTs.
Favourite city in Australia?
Brisbane.
Oh, for what?
Everything. Life.
Well, I mean, Brisbane
living.
lives, but depends what you want to go somewhere
Alright.
for. Yeah,
Holiday.
Yeah. Sydney.
Sydney. Okay. Great.
very nice. You survived. Survived the QT.
Didn't reveal too much.
Quick 6. Well, thank you guys very, very much for joining us. It's been great
Pleasure.
to have you as part of the show. And looking forward to following the campaign, which I heard is going national possibly, because you have national digital
Yeah,
billboards.
if we can get the interest in it, I think the issue is that we've actually got the only real digital billboard network in Australia at the moment. So that's probably one thing that's holding up it, because there's a fair bit of money to be invested otherwise to get it going. And I think the other thing is that, you know, it's the one billboard sparked that initial media interest, which got it to spread like wildfire. And I think once that's happened, you know, I said to Steve in the communications we had since was the trick which we probably needed to do earlier was to talk about the stage 2 on this and how we reignite it, and that I've left that ball in his court.
It's a great
we look
campaign.
forward to seeing exactly what it's going to
Reignition.
bring. So stay tuned for more of your having a lesbian. That's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. As per usual, make sure you jump on the social medias. Let us know how much you loved or hated the show. Any creative feedback you have is always welcome. We'll be back with more next week. Thank you very much. I'm Michael James.
I'm Kate Mackey.
And I'm Matthew Bowe.
Have a good night.
Advance to the absolute peak of human perfection. Human